The Book of Values. Dedication. This book is dedicated to all those who thirst to live a better life, whatever that may mean to them. Values and ethics are oftentimes indefinable, and what may seem honest and righteous to one may confound another. Such is the nature of humanity. Such are the dilemmas I myself have grappled with. I dedicate this book to my mother, to my son, to my husband, and to a very special friend. Some books are meant to be read and savored in one sitting. This book is not one of those. In its pages, the author has spanned the most relevant moral, spiritual, intellectual, and emotional constructs of human existence. Arranged in alphabetical order, each value is placed into context with an appropriate quotation to reinforce the idea and ponder further. Each value deserves more than cursory contemplation. This is a book to read one value at a time, as if a missile. The reader may start any place and jump from value to value without losing the basic message of the book. The author must be complimented in producing a work that deserves reading again and again. I say this is a must-have and read book. Acknowledgements. I have been richly endowed with loving friends who have given me love and support throughout what sometimes were very hard times. It would take a book for me to describe my gratitude to them all, from my beloved uncle to my darling sister, my grandparents who have taught me so much, my teachers, and of course, the many experiences I have had. All have contributed to the person I am today, the person who could accumulate a set of values and put them in a book. My gratitude for the people and the blessings in my life is currently being compiled into what I hope to publish as the 1001 Gifts. How to proceed. The values presented herein are by no means all-inclusive, yet they represent certain characteristics of humanity that appeal to me. Peruse them at your leisure. They are presented alphabetically, but you may access them randomly by clicking on a particular value from the table of contents, or listen to them sequentially. This is your journey. Forward. Human society is a conglomeration of individuals in which personal needs and wants may come in conflict with those of others. Every individual functions as a biological entity separate from other individuals. In the animal and plant world, there is an equilibrium which sustains a continuation of the ecosphere. Human society has progressed beyond simple survival. The development of consciousness and civilization has required a greater perspective of what is necessary for progress. In the very beginning, humans foraged and scavenged for the basic necessities of life. With the advent of fire and the realization of strength in numbers, certain rules of behavior were established to allow individuals to coexist with each other in peace and harmony. There is no record from prehistory as how humans developed a set of values to guide their lives. It may be assumed that trial and error formed the greater impetus to develop rules of coexistence. The Book of Values represents a compendium of 156 values identified as being influential in our modern civilized world. At first glance, many of these values may appear obvious. Many others may take a moment of reflection to fully understand the importance of the message. In any case, this is an extremely important book to read and reread many times. On further reflection, the word scruples may come to mind. Scruples represent, by definition, proscriptions against doing objectionable acts. Values, on the other hand, represent positive affirmations to live by. It is far easier to accept a value than a scruple. By nature, who wants to be scolded? Values have a far more positive impact on behavior than anything else. Every word, every value, stands out as a beacon to follow. There is not a single value that has not been tested in the crucible of time. Great men and women have risen by following these values. That is not to say that these values are only for the great. Indeed, everyone can be guided to live a better and fuller life with these values. This book is not to be read from cover to cover in one sitting. It is a book meant to read slowly with contemplation and reflection. It is not meant to be read from the beginning to end. Thumbing through the table of contents, one can find values of interest which may pertain to current personal moral issues. In that regard, this book can be the way to enlightenment. When I first picked up this book, I was not immediately impressed by its alleged importance. I should have known better, because the axiom that a book must not be judged by its cover is never more apt than here. As I continued to read, I began to understand its importance. If there is one value which stands out for me, it is the value of gratitude. I think this word best exemplifies the great dedication and service I have felt from the author, who took the time to chronicle all the important values she could identify. To her my gratitude is eternal. No reader will put down this book without feeling what I have felt. John E. Christ, M.D., Ph.D., Tampa, Florida, 2014. Prologue. As a society, we have become all too casual from attire to speech, behavior, attitudes, and sentiments. Our moral values have not been lost, however. They are sometimes displayed in magnificent glory, as in the Memorial Museum of 9/11. At other times, they seem to lie dormant, yet they are present in us all, and like the seedling that bursts through the fresh snow, they ultimately lift up their hearts and shine toward the light. I have written this book without wishing to preach, without invoking religion, and without championing a particular philosophy. Is it clear, however, that certain behaviors cause more problems than they solve, and therefore it might behoove us to examine our thinking and belief systems so as to engender as much pleasure and happiness as possible for ourselves and those we interact with? This book should not be taken as a taskmaster, but should serve as a beacon, a guidepost to thought and behavior. Within the pages of this book are time-honored principles that are as relevant today as they have ever been. You may find that some concepts overlap. Indeed, some of the values described share in significance and connotation. The quotes are taken from historical luminaries as well as from contemporary celebrities. I have attempted, as best I can, to assign proper attribution to each. Yael Eilat Tanaka, Tampa, 2014. Introduction. Aspire to decency. Practice civility toward one another. Admire and emulate ethical behavior wherever you find it. Apply a rigid standard of morality to your lives, and if, periodically, you fail, as you surely will, adjust your lives, not the standards. Ted Koppel. From the beginning of time, moral codes have governed society. Morals were a set of rules for behavior that made it possible for living things to coexist. Those living things comprised not only human beings, but also certain members of the animal kingdom, lions, hyenas, wolves, and several other species. Rules had to be developed in order to establish an acceptable pecking order and ascribe a role for the alpha male status versus the young male vis-a-vis mating or feeding rights within that society, all for the purpose of smooth coexistence and harmonious interaction of the group members, while the pecking order among animals has remained fairly constant and predictable in establishing acceptable behavior, such is not the case among humans. As civilization evolved, many of the rules that had been so useful in promoting and sustaining successful societies have been examined, tested, and reconfigured in favor of the current, much more relaxed, devil-may-care attitude that reflects upon all facets of contemporary society, from lack of scruples in business to Wall Street greed and mendacity, from politics to the marital bed. Such overhaul in attitudes has also resulted in the epidemic of anxiety and depression that are rampant throughout the modern world. This is not a summons to don the mantle of the cloth or an endorsement to espouse a particular faith. It is about the timeless relevance of some rules of behavior that encompass much more than mere superficial courtesies, rules of behavior that are universal, that reach across our entire lives, both within our psyche and among our brethren. Humans are flawed. We are endowed with all the qualities and potentials that can make us heroes or villains. It is a matter of choice, then, to decide the path our life will take, our role in the world, and the legacy we leave behind. Wise men and women have spoken these thoughts before, from the eloquent lips of Winston Churchill to the ministerial, heartfelt hopes of Mandela, from Michael Jackson and Oprah Winfrey to George Washington and Voltaire. Peace, faith, and charity are not simply lofty words heard from the pulpit. They are not old-fashioned and irrelevant. On the contrary, they are as relevant and significant today as they ever were. Find your soul amid these words.